Welcome back to Quetheview. My name's Jack. Today I am here on location in New York with the man who has done it all. A 6-time Emmy winner, a CBS News journalist, a New York Times best-selling author, and a future EGOT winner. I'm joined here with
David Pogue.
David Pogue.
Jack, I should point this out. I clearly you've done your homework, but I have some breaking news for you.
Oh, everybody, breaking news. Hello? Yes, what's the breaking news?
7th Emmy just arrived.
7 Emmys, not 6 Emmys. I gotta study better next time. All right, David, thank you for being here on Quetheview. Really appreciate it. Awesome to have you. So let's start. As I usually start my interviews, they know who I am. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Let's see. I am probably best known as a CBS Sunday morning correspondent.
Yes.
Before that, I was a New York Times tech columnist for 13 years. Every Thursday for 13 years, I would review the latest stuff, newest iPhone, printer, whatever. And before that, I wrote for computer magazines for 13 years. And before that, I was a Broadway theater conductor. I was a musician in the pits of Broadway shows.
As I said, you have done it all. I mean, checkbox check, checkbox check. David, as a kid, going kind of when you were young, what did you want to be when you grew up? I mean, you're doing all these things now, but what was your main goal?
I actually, when I was really little, what I wanted to be was magic. So I was nuts about Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie and the $6 Million Man. I wanted to have magic powers. Can you imagine if like Harry Potter had come out when I was 7? Oh man.
Yeah.
So I became a magician and I did 400 magic shows during my teenage years, starting about your age. And I would do birthday parties and street parties and block parties.
So you said you wanted to be a magician when you were young. Did that dream ever change? Did you realize, well, being a magician, literally, is not in the cards for me?
As a teenager, I got involved with, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I got involved with the Cleveland Playhouse Youth Theater, and I started writing musicals. I was also a music nerd, and I would write children's shows for them to put on. And so I sort of got the theater bug early on. Cleveland's actually a great place for theater, and everybody supported me, and we had casts and we had bands, and so by the time I was in college, I became a music major, and all the other kids were studying classical music and Beethoven and Brahms, and I was studying Sondheim and Cole Porter and the Broadway composers, and so I think that's where things shifted. I think I became convinced that I was going to be a Broadway composer.
Forwarding to your time at college, being a graduate of Yale, can you talk about what in college led you to the person you are today?
Wow. Well, I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
This might be too long. You can always snip it out. In English class, freshman English, I was a straight A student. Always got straight A's my entire life. Guy gave me my first B, and I couldn't stand it. Wrote the next paper for this English professor, another B. I'm like, what is the deal? I'm a good writer. And so I went to office hours. I went to see this guy. And he said, I'll tell you the problem. Your writing is good, your structure is excellent, but you got nothing to say. I'm like, what? He goes, I give you these assignments to write a paper on some book, and you write it like it's an assignment to write a paper. Have an argument. Take a stand. Have a point. And then this is it. This is it. And I'm telling you now, I'm sharing this to you. He said, everything that is written is meant to be persuasive. I'm like, what do you mean everything that's written? He's like, every ad, every news article, every fiction story.
To make you think a certain opinion.
Yes! Everything is ultimately designed to sway the reader's opinion.
Yeah.
And I have never forgotten that. I have never written a single thing without first asking, what am I trying to convince my reader of? So for reviews, like that I wrote for the New York Times for 13 years, that's easy, right?
Yeah.
I want you to believe me that this thing is terrible or that this thing is great.
Yes.
Exactly. And the books, my in these computer books I do, the argument is always they want you to think that this is too hard. They want you to think this is technical. It's not. You can do this. I'll show you how easy it is. So it's an incredible thing that I learned in college. That one line, every piece of writing is meant to be persuasive.
David, being a multi-talented music expert, big word, dashes in between all those, you've been a part of a lot of Broadway shows, conducting. Can you tell us what you've done in the music world?
In the music world. Well, I worked on a bunch of shows in the 80s and early 90s. I am not ashamed to say they were all flops. I worked exclusively on shows that didn't make it. I like to say, I don't think it's because I worked on them that they flopped. The truth is 80% of Broadway shows do not make their money back. Most shows flop. As in any art. Most books, most movies do not make their money back. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, but and then over time I sort of phased into writing, and as you know, and speaking, and then the reporting, and so the theater thing kind of phased out.
David, you ever find yourself in the shower? I mean, many people do, just belting out some Elvis Presley, Van Morrison. You ever sing in the shower?
I guess I do. I have a weird thing where songs will get stuck in my head, but for days.
Okay.
In fact, I've never told anyone this but my wife. Let It Go from Frozen has been stuck in my head since it came out.
Really?
In 2004. I wake up every morning. It's in my head when I wake up. I have no idea what that's about. But in my head every morning I get out of bed and I'm going, let it go, let it go. I don't know it. So yeah, songs are always running through my head all the time. My kids tell me that too, that at any given time I can say, Jack, what song's in your head right now? And
let it go.
There you go.
David, you've written and co-written over 120 books. That's a lot of books. That's a lot of words, including your fleet of dummies books. We know you're a hardcore writer. You like to write books, but are you a hardcore reader?
Not as much.
Really?
No, yeah. No, I probably write more books than I read.
Okay,
I think
really?
that's safe to say.
That's surprising.
There's not, I mean, for me, reading is a thing to fill blocks of dead time.
Yep.
I don't have much of that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. David, you have 7 Emmys under your belt. 7 Emmys for CBS Sunday Morning.
Mm-hmm.
So you know your way around the CBS stage floor.
Mm-hmm.
What makes CBS Sunday Morning so special to you?
I have heard many people say it's the best show on TV, and I would certainly agree with that. It is. So there's from the audience's side and there's from my side. So from my side, it's a news program where the stories can be long, like 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes long. That's crazy in today's news. Like the evening news guys at CBS hate us.
Yeah.
They're like, I get 90 seconds to tell my story, and you're on there for 9 minutes. It's not fair. It's true. They're so jealous.
Yeah,
and from the audience's point of view, I wouldn't say it's all good news, but the show does not focus on the war and the misery and the plagues.
So it's very heartwarming.
It is. There's a lot. It's a lot about culture, Broadway and music and books and movies. A lot of really deep profiles of famous people, and for me, above all, we can suggest our own stories. So if I see something interesting to me, I pitch it to them, and they say sure.
You find the stories instead of somebody coming to you, or is it a mix?
Yeah, it's about half and half. Okay. So half of them, they say, would you like to do a story about this? And half of them, I pitch to them.
Interesting.
And by the way, and nobody gets that in the world either. If you work for the evening news or probably even 60 Minutes, they tell you what to do the story on.
Yeah, so it's very personalized.
Yeah.
David, a memorable story that I remember that you've done was you went on the Ocean Gate Titanic submarine.
I did.
Can you explain to the viewers at home, what that was?
Yeah, so this was one of the big headlines of 2023 is the little submersible that was taking tourists down to the Titanic to see the wreck. And tragically, it imploded and killed everybody on board last July. 3 dives before that. 3 dives before
3.
I was on that thing. I was in that exact submersible. We were doing a story for Sunday morning.
David, going back to the tech world, I'm 14 years old. There's been a lot of tech to come out in the past 14 years. And my generation is very tech heavy. In the past 14 years, what do you think the most valuable piece of tech to come out, what do you think that piece of tech was? And what tech do you think we could live without?
Well, I think the biggest piece of hardware, I think most people would agree, is the phone.
Yes.
The touchscreen phone, the iPhone, Android phone.
Yeah.
That just changed everything for better and for worse.
Everybody has a phone, which is pretty remarkable. That's a lot of phones.
Yep, that's right. Billions and billions. But, the biggest piece of technology, period, was AI. Last year's, ChatGPT and DALL-E and all these inventions that, we're going to be coping with that for decades.
Yes.
We still don't know exactly what kind of impact it's going to have. A lot of job disruption, a lot of careers that you will be facing when you get out of college will not look like today's careers. That's for sure. So what technology you can do without? The great thing about the consumer tech world is that bad technology dies on its own.
Mm-hmm.
So I could name you all kinds of things that we can do without, and we do without.
David, cheese. A lot of science involved. Molding, cheese caves, enzymes. What's your favorite cheese? Besides the science, what's your favorite cheese, and what do you pair it with?
Why does nobody ever ask me this question? I like smoked cheese, like smoked Gouda.
Yeah.
I really dig that.
On sandwiches? What do you...
On crackers. It's a great little, mid-afternoon snack.
Mm-hmm. David, picture this scenario. 4 roads that all lead to different places. One road leads to an art exhibit. One road leads to a science museum. Another road leads to a Broadway show. And the final road leads to a good old amusement park. Which road are you taking and why?
So first of all, if I had to characterize my entire life's output, I think what I was meant to do on this planet is to be an explainer.
Okay.
So I'm not a scientist. I'm not a computer
talker
guy. I don't design computers. I couldn't take one apart, put it together. But I am an explainer for the layperson.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, I do try to go to as many science museums as I can because I want to see how other people explain difficult concepts. Anyway, so I think I would put number 1 as the science museum just to see how they do it. But Broadway would be a very close second. My heart is still with Broadway. I see as many shows as I can, and I always like to know what's going on.
David, thank you for being on Quetheview. Really appreciate it. Today, our mic is David's 2022 to 2023 Emmy Award. He has 6 more of these, 7 in total, which I at first got wrong. Breaking news. David, again, thank you so much for being here. Again, I'm Jack, and Emmy is our mic today. I'm joined here with
David Pogue. Well done, Jack.
Thank you. David Pogue, a.k.a. Technoclaus. Thank you for watching. We're out.